CHGO White Sox podcast, coming to you live from Studio A of our CHGO offices here in the West Loop of Chicago. I'm your host, Sean Anderson. Alongside me, the full CHGO White Sox crew. That is Vinnie Duber. You can follow him at Vinnie Duber and read his work up at ALLCITY.com. He's got an article up today about our main topic, who the White Sox will be taking with the number 5 overall pick in the 2024 MLB Draft that's coming up on Sunday. The man in the middle is Herb Lawrence.
Hello.
You can follow him at Ecknerwall23. He's our CHGO White Sox community leader. You can follow the show at CHGO_White Sox. We're being produced today by Stephen Nicholas.
Whoa.
Hey, guys.
Old
I'm back.
school.
It's been a while since you've been on. We now have the producers talk in the first.
Okay, yeah, this is different.
Yeah.
I usually sit here quietly until I have something to chime in with. Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on the MLB Draft? I mean, we just talked about it for Tavern Style. You seem very excited for the MLB Draft.
MLB Draft is probably the least interesting thing you could watch on television on Sunday.
I could not agree more.
It is Sunday.
It is
You're
Sunday,
right
yeah.
about that. It's funny because his tone has completely changed. He said he canceled all his golf plans for Sunday just
I
for
would
this.
never.
For
exact
Sunday
event.
night, you're going to be golfing in the dark?
I would rather.
Yeah.
Springsteen
I would rather just look for my lost golf ball than watch the entire MLB Draft. Yeah.
Wow.
Is it night? I thought it was at like 4 p.m.
Well, that's evening.
Yeah, but the sun doesn't set till 8:30.
All right.
You can get
Steven's going to squeeze in a quick round.
golf round in. Anyways, on today's show, we'll be talking about the MLB Draft. We'll later be joined by Just Baseball's Aram Leighton. He had mock draft 3.0 come out recently, earlier this July. He's going to have another one coming out soon, so we'll talk to him about his process. We'll talk a little bit about the players that could be selected with the number 5 overall pick in the first segment, and then later in the show, we'll hear from Coulson Montgomery, the current number 1 overall prospect in some people's mind. Some people think it's Noah Schultz in the White Sox organization. He was named to the Futures game, so he chatted with Vinny and the rest of the White Sox media about that honor and what it means for him. Vinny, you wrote about this up at allchgo.com. What have you taken away so far with the MLB Draft only 3 days away about who the White Sox might be taking 5th overall?
Well, I mean, I think it's a very nice reminder that even when you have a pick as high as number 5, that is going to be a really important one for the White Sox and for their rebuilding project as they focus on the future. It's a reminder of how weird the MLB Draft is compared to the ones in the other sports, that they don't know who they're going to take, that we don't know who they're going to take, that we don't know who the top team in the draft is going to take, let alone the 3 teams that are picking in between Cleveland at number 1 and the White Sox at number 5. There's so much that goes into it, more than just stacking the players up in a list and ranking them by how talented you think they are, because there's that whole financial element, the signability that you're going to hear so much about, the idea that a team could strategically pick a player that they might think is not as good as another player, but costs less, and therefore they can spread their money and their draft spending out over multiple rounds, compared to what they would, and have more money for the later rounds versus, spending it all and heavily on your number 1 pick. So it's almost impossible to forecast. The guys that do it regularly, bravo to them, because I don't know how you could sift through not only all the prospects in a sport that does not get the coverage that college basketball or college football does, right? But then also throw all this money stuff into it and try to come up with who's going to pick who. So I think when it comes to the White Sox, they are in a similar boat. They don't know how all that is going to play out in the top 4 picks. And so Mike Shirley told us the other day, the amateur scouting director, the guy who's in charge of making these picks for the White Sox, that they're working on a list of 10 guys. And by the time 4 of them are off the board, they'll see who's left and how the money works out. And that's when they're going to actually be able to make a determination on who they're going to pick, probably once they get on the clock.
The only thing I worry about, Sean, is the guy that we're going to talk about soon, is the Paul Skeens effect, where people who are not tuned in to what MLB Draft is and what the major leagues are think that You draft a guy, and the next year he comes up. Paul Skeens is one of one. The only person that's ever got drafted, and then the next year he's an all-star. So don't believe that one of these guys, and none of these guys are even of that caliber. Paul Skeens was the clear-cut #1 pick last year for the Pirates, and there's no such thing, I don't think, this year. There could be anybody who can go from 1 or to 5, and the White Sox might get lucky because of the things that are in front of them and people who are not wanting to pay top scale for the top pick. So just remember, give these guys some time when he does get drafted. They'll take some time, especially if they're a high school student, to get up to the major league. So don't expect immediate reaction and immediate production from this player.
I like that Jim, our sales guy that's sitting about 15 feet away from us, and then Steven, who's sitting about 5 feet away from us, are just having a conversation in the chat about Jac Caglianone. We'll get to it, Jim. If you sit there and be patient, we'll get to it. Okay, I'm talking to Antoine. And we do appreciate Antoine and AJ joining us in the chat along with Jim. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already, and make sure you're subscribing to the CHGO Sports YouTube channel. And even as Mike Shirley said, you have to be prepared in multiple directions. Even at pick 5, we have no idea who's going #1. So again, we don't know who's going #1. Mike Shirley, who's much more in touch with this, doesn't know who's going #1.
Vastly more.
Does the guy that's going #1 know that he's going #1? It is tough to just kind of do the actual mock process and figure out who's going in the top 15. And then if you try to go who's going in the top 30, good luck. If you're doing a full 5-round MLB mock draft, you have a lot of time on your hands.
But it makes no sense that we don't know who should be going #1. Cleveland probably knows. There's no trading of these picks like the other leagues where you can trade up, and you're doing this for reasons in draft strategy. There's no strategy to it. Whoever you want.
Strategy. I mean, because again, like if they're thinking right now it's Bazana, but then Weatherholt's agent comes to them on Saturday and it's like, oh, we'll actually take, $500K less than what you originally offered us. That could be the signer right there.
Yeah, but you've done this, and you've known you've been the team since December when we were in Nashville when they won the lottery. And so you should have had all these conversations pared down, but by now you should know, okay, this guy's the better player. I don't care how much he makes. And I know it's baseball's
but that's
dumb.
you, Herb. That's you. And and these teams very much do care how much they make, particularly a team like the Cleveland Guardians, who is
cry poor,
famous for not spending very much.
Yeah, just dumb.
Well, and two, I mean, they also have I don't know the exact picks right now, but I think they have 3 of the top 60. So I think their thought process too is, there might only be 15 guys that are first rounders. If we play our money right, we could possibly move those guys around the top 60 and still give them paydays that they're happy with, and we get 3 in our minds, first round talents or so. So I mean, I get it. Let's go to the top 10 prospects and talk about what Herb was alluding to in the Paul Skeens thing. The top 10 MLB prospects that I think this is the consensus. So I guess it's really my opinion on the consensus. Mm-hmm. It's not the actual consensus.
This is the 10 guys that I saw on MLB.com earlier today. So.
Pretty consistent. And to group them up, too, you can look at it this way. The first 6 guys are all college bats. Travis Bazana, the second baseman out of Oregon State. Charlie Condon, the third baseman out of Georgia. Jac Caglianone, the first baseman out of Florida. Some people want to make him a pitcher, as Steven made the intro two-way star. We'll see if he's a pitcher. I don't know if he's the Floridian Ohtani. J.J. Weatherholt, the shortstop from West Virginia. Braden Montgomery, the outfielder from Mississippi State. And Nick Kurtz, the first baseman from Wake Forest. There's also the 2 college pitchers that are in the top 10, Chase Burns out of Wake Forest and Hagen Smith out of Arkansas. And then the 2 top prep players, Connor Griffin and Bryce Rainier. Those 2 are pretty much the top 2 prep pitchers. Those pitchers are the top 2 pitchers. There's really no debate in those. And those top 6 hitters are pretty much the top 6 hitters. So the one thing that I've learned about these boards and these prospects is there's very little separation. And even the guys that are like 11 through 15, like, they're on the heels of being in that top 10. Like it's very much condensed. Unlike last year, if you threw the top 3 guys into this top 10, there would be a wide gap between Paul Skeens and
everyone,
Dylan Cruz and Wyatt Langford, like there was, and then there would be a big gap between Cruz, Langford, and then the guys that you just saw, Bazana, Condon, etc. So it is a weaker draft, and as Mike Shirley talked about, having the 10th pick next year probably sucks. You'd probably rather have the 5th pick next year and the 10th pick this year. But That's not how it goes.
And though, we might have been able to find exactly what the top 10 list is for the White Sox that they're working on. I can tell you, because we heard from Mike Shirley, said there are 3 names that you just saw there that are in the mix for that, right? And that's the 2 pitchers that you mentioned, although I think they would prefer to take a position player. They probably will take a position player, but they're considering those 2 pitchers on there, Burns and Smith. And then also we saw on the broadcast a few weeks ago that Jac Caglianone visited the team at the ballpark on the south side.
Herb, I have a question for you, but
Yes.
I did forget to do my job. Coming to you live on this Summerside Summer Thursday. This is the CHGO White Sox podcast. Head to sunnyside.shop or the nearest Sunnyside Cannabis dispensary and use code HICHGO for 35% off your first order. Bright buys every day, only for 21 plus or Illinois medical card holders. Herb, I'll ask you a more specific question. Looking at that top 10 prospects, out of the 6 hitters, is there a guy that you like? If you were Herb Lawrence, you were the GM of the Guardians, you don't care if you're giving more bonus money to Travis Bazzana than Paul Skeens got last year. You're just trying to get the best player. Who do you think is the best player? Who would you be most happy with the White Sox getting? Just, if the White Sox were picking one overall.
Just by my straight amateur scouting, I think J.J. Weatherholt is the best player overall, but he has concerns about hamstrings and things that happened this year. But when he came back this year for West Virginia, he was J.J. Weatherholt. That being said, that's a soft tissue injury. If I'm the Cleveland Guardians, I'm picking Travis Bazzana, not looking back. Middle infielder, second baseman, more than likely, and can control the bat. It's got like a 60 on both power and hit, and he's a speedy guy. So that guy, I would pick him, put him into my lineup 3 years from now, and he's a perfect Cleveland Guardian. Fast, speed, left-handed. He's going to be a star. Now, if I'm the White Sox, I know White Sox fans would be kind of hesitant to pick another Oregon State second baseman.
Yeah, but they're different.
They're much different.
Nick Madrigal was predicted to be the next Craig Biggio. This is maybe a little bit more Jeff Kent than Craig Biggio.
I like these late 90s, early 2000s polls.
I'll try to keep it up.
That's right in my wheelhouse. There.
I don't think there's many Australians to compare him to, and that's the exciting thing about Bazzana is that he is Australian. We obviously know Liam Hendricks, but he's a pitcher. There isn't a ton of
Dave Nielsen.
There's Dave Nielsen,
big, tall, left-handed first baseman.
Pretty sure he's sung Everybody's Talking.
I don't know if that's
Dave Nilsson Schmilson is what I say.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. It's Harry Nilsson. He's the guy that sung Everybody's Talking at Me. All right.
Jump into the fire is better.
Jump into the fire is better. Travis Bazzana, very interesting player, and I brought this up to Vinny. I don't know if you guys know this. He did play in the Sydney Professional League as a 15, 16, and 17-year-old. He did hit 257, 395, and 371, but again, he was 15, 16, and 17, and there was like an 8.5-year age difference when he was 17. So there's like a 10-year age difference when he was hitting, taking one at bat when he was a 15-year-old. But he's a very interesting player. I think he should be the number 1 overall pick. But again, he's not as good as Paul Skeens, so he won't get Paul Skeens money. Is there a way that he possibly falls to 5? I think that there is. I don't know if Oakland would let him get past him, but I've seen mock drafts where Bazzana gets to 4, and it's like Oakland's pretty known to be fairly cheap. And they're going to max out their slot to get, the best baseball player. The White Sox might end up getting the best baseball player out of this draft just because the MLB draft is, these are my words, stupid.
I mean, didn't they get the best player in Carlos Rodon because of injury concerns? And that turned out to be true. He was the best pitcher in baseball at the time when he was at North Carolina State. He fell to 3 for the White Sox to pick, and they picked him up. Same thing at 13 when Chris Sale, where there was injury concerns, and the White Sox we're going to pick him up. And they got the best player in that draft, more than likely.
Well, because think, too, because of how this works, right, those slot numbers keep decreasing as the picks go on. And so if someone who falls, they suddenly become a way better value, right? And you start getting some if
are such high quality, wrinkle free, and so buttery soft that you can look like you're dressing up even when you're dressing down. And the best part too about cuts is that they're not just changing the t-shirt game, but they're also changing your pant game for you. Your bottom stretch to fit joggers look way better than your khakis and are 1,000 times more comfortable. All of their clothing is as comfortable as athleisure, but fashionable enough to wear to work or backyard barbecues. And the best part is that Cuts clothing is built to last. Their durable construction means you'll always be enjoying your favorite shirts and pants for years to come, making them a smart investment for your wardrobe. So embrace the summer state of mind with Cuts. For a limited time, our listeners get 20% off your entire order when you use code CHGO at checkout. That's 20% off your order at cutsclothing.com with promo code CHGO. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Experience the perfect blend of style and comfort with Cuts Clothing.
Our friends at Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary are here to elevate your summer. Sunnyside is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping. They have a crazy selection with over 100 different strains to choose from with easy online ordering and in-store pickup. Wherever you are in Illinois, Sunnyside has a location for you. They have spots as far south as Champaign and as far north as South Beloit. Stop in the store nearest you and experience guidance from their staff. Select from quality lines like Cresco or Floracal. Here for the summer is Good News Tea Time Disposable Vape, bringing your classic lemonade flavor that's perfect for the golf course, because we all need a little help staying loose on the green. I know I'm picking up some Friday gummies from Good News when I do head over to Sunnyside, and you can too by going to sunnyside.shop and use the code HICHGO at checkout for 35% off of brands of 35% off Cresco, Good News, and more to elevate your first purchase. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. Bright buys every day. Only for 21 plus or Illinois medical card holders.
Thank you, Herb. And let's head out to our guest. Aram Leighton is the co-founder and executive editor of Just Baseball Media. You can follow him on X over at Aram Leighton 8. He recently posted his mock draft 3.0 over at Just Baseball, and you can go check that out. He'll have another mock draft coming up soon. What's up, Aram? Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, and really appreciate the kind intro.
Absolutely. You and Peter went through your mock draft 3.0. I feel like I got a good insight into your thought process, but still the MLB draft is an evolving organism. How do you feel Cleveland is looking at that number 1 overall pick? We've been talking about how fun slot money is and how fun it is with the politics of bargaining a contract for these rookies. But what do you view right now on July 11th, 3 days away from the first overall pick from the Guardians?
It's crazy. It feels like the more you think about it, the more you can convince yourself that it could go another way. And you could almost convince yourself of all of these different outcomes, but they're all pretty possible. And I think it's going to come down to what the Guardians end up feeling like is the best deal for them. And, I'm sure whoever they take, they're going to say, this is the guy that was the best player on our board, and this is who we love the most. And maybe that will be the case. You'll never really know. But I do think that they are deal shopping. I just feel like when you have the biggest bonus pool, the way that the Guardians like to operate, the number 1 pick is such a blessing for these teams, and they're so excited about it. Not because they have the first pick, especially in a class like this, where I think there's a lot of different names that you can interchange, and it's kind of in the eye of the beholder. Why not save that money and get really creative on the back end, which we've seen them do plenty of? Yes, this is a more top-heavy draft, but still, there's always gems to be found, and I wouldn't be surprised if they end up trying to look for a deal, but it is always nice when you can fall back and just go grab Travis Bazzana and feel really safe and go to sleep pretty comfortably that night.
And Aram, I want to know, speaking of that subject, what's the best-case scenario for the White Sox if one of those players do slip to buy? Does a Charlie Condon or a Travis Bazzana fall to number 5 and the White Sox have found money?
So I was thinking about the way things could unfold, and you look at the Rockies, very likely to take an arm, and that seemed like, okay, well, maybe there's a scenario here where Condon slips and maybe falls into the White Sox lap. But the more I kind of pry and the more information I try to get here, it sounds like the Rockies are in a spot where, yes, they want to go arm, but if Charlie Condon's there, they might just go take the guy that, is going to perform unbelievably well if it all works out. In altitude, you hope that he can play a position out there. They're going to try him at third potentially. They could try him in the outfield. Condon could also go 2 to the Reds. But I do think that sitting at 5, there's a scenario where you're just going to almost be happy with no matter what you'll be able to get. Caglianone could fall there. The White Sox have definitely looked at him plenty, and he's got the best power in the draft. I think the highest ceiling in the draft, but you also could go get the top arm in the class in Chase Burns. So you have a good chance here where even if it doesn't unfold exactly how you wanted, you didn't get one of Condon or a Bazzana, you still have a chance to get the best power hitter in the class or the best pitcher in the class. So I think the White Sox have to feel pretty good about where they're at.
Let's talk about Caglianone because Steven, of course, our producer, made him the title of the show today. So is this guy the next Ohtani or what? Is he going to pitch? Is he going to pitch or is he just going to be a hitter? What do we think?
I think they shift the focus just mostly to the plate and just mostly hitting here. And I think that would be best for him. You never know. We did kind of see the velocity taper off at the end of the year, and I do have some concern if there was something going on there. They did also cut his last outing short. But you also look at what he can do at the plate versus what the upside is on the mound. I think on the mound, it's more of a, back of the rotation profile, maybe a high leverage reliever. Whereas at the plate, if it all works out, you're talking about a guy that can hit 40 plus homers. So we saw Bryce Eldridge with the Giants, legitimate two-way prospect out of high school, 6'7" kid that looked good on the mound. And he looked so good at the plate right out of the gate that the Giants said, let's shut down the mound, let's focus at the plate, and let's develop you into one of the better young power hitters in the game. I think that's the approach with someone like Caglianone. And I think that's an exciting aspect because really the only big question with him is the approach. Highest chase rate of any of the top bats in this class, one of the higher chase rates in the country. Is that a matter of pitch recognition or just him feeling like he can hit everything? Maybe just focusing on hitting in general could help either way.
And I've heard about Caglianone. I think it was Keith Law mentioned 80 grade power. I don't know if you see that, but a lot of people are concerned, hey, we just took a top 3 first baseman in Andrew Vaughn not too long ago back in 2019. What makes Cags a different player? Is it the fact that, maybe he does actually have the athleticism to play right field like the White Sox tried with Andrew Vaughn?
I do think he's a better athlete. And clearly, you saw that on the mound. I know that Vaughn pitched a little bit too, but if you watch these two guys pitch, I think you'd also be able to, I think it's actually a great case study to see how much more athletic, Caglianone is. And that's not to disparage Vaughn. It's more of a credit to the specimen that Caglianone is. I do think that he could go out into right field. It's a 70 grade arm out there. He's athletic enough to at least get by there. But I think the big separator offensively is, you got to take these exit velocities a bit with a grain of salt. They were up about 2 miles per hour across the country in college baseball. But even if you did that, the power, the impact is just on a different level. And also the bat to ball is really good. So it just really comes down to those swing decisions. But I think when you look at what Caglianone can do, this guy, he takes, forget B swings, C swings, where he's able to still hit it out of the yard. Pitches that he has no business hitting hard, let alone just even getting to, and he ends up hitting them 400 feet. That was something that made it harder for Vaughn. You're not seeing him go backside and go 400 feet the other way. Caglianone can do that. He has a wider margin for error, and I think that the field to hit is just as good, if not better. So I think there's a lot to like there with the upside, and I don't think it's as similar of a risk there, even though there's some positional limitation.
Two players with injury concerns early in this draft. We have J.J. Weatherholt and Braden Montgomery. Which player do you think projects to be a longer, better-term player for a team like the White Sox?
That's a great question because I think it could go a couple different ways. I would say from the lens of just safety and in terms of, I think, the highest probability of being an everyday big leaguer, I'd go with a Weatherholt. I do wonder if that hamstring is a recurring thing. He did have it, flare up now twice. Maybe he didn't fully get right the first time. He did come back quicker than a lot of people thought. And, he still did perform really well when he did come back and ended up being able to get by at shortstop a little bit too. And I think with someone like Montgomery, yes, he messed up the ankle, seemed like a fluky injury, and he should be more than ready to go. So I don't know if that's going to have any, negative bearing there. I do have some concern about swing and miss on secondary stuff with Montgomery, where Weatherholt, I think, has one of the purest swings in the class right there with Bazana. He also has a chance to play shortstop or be a really good second baseman, which also helps his case, whereas Montgomery, great arm, but it's a corner profile in the outfield and right field, and he's going to really need to slug. I think Weatherholt's a more well-rounded player, and if I were making the pick, I'd feel more comfortable going with a Weatherholt, but there is a scenario there where Montgomery's hitting 30-plus, and you're like, oof, we missed, but I think you're always going to feel happy about getting a player like Weatherholt that has tools across the board, and he's no slouch with the power either.
The Sox have said that they prefer a position player. There's a lot of good position players to talk about, but also you can never have enough pitching. They're considering both Burns and Hagen Smith. What's exciting about those two college pitchers?
Burns is fascinating because you can't teach what he can do on the mound, right? He's a guy that's been touching 100 since he was in high school, and he's been holding velocity late into the year. Every single year we've seen him in college. Had a little bit of a blip, really bounces back, wins a national championship, and really performs on the big stage for the most part. But I think when you look at what he can just do on the mound, Yes, there's some concern about swing and miss with the fastball. You'd think it would perform a little bit better. Lefties did hit it pretty well. I do think that's something that he can, get under control. It's a very over-the-top release, so it gets down on plane. Sometimes it's easier for hitters to, pick up and barrel, but that's something that I think as he works the top more, it's similar to Verlander, where I think figuring that out, you have that to dream on, where you can play it at the top. And then he's got one of the best sliders, if not the best slider in this class, other than a Hagen Smith, who I'll get to in a second, where it was a low 100s batting average against. He located consistently for a strike, and he's just a power arm that I think made a lot of progress this year. Has a more well-rounded arsenal, but you look at a Hagen Smith, he's cut from the cloth of a guy that can climb, and there are some similarities. I don't want to set the ceiling that high because Crochet is a different level of beast there, but there's some similarities of how he could climb quickly, because it's a borderline 70 grade fastball, funky release, and then you have that slider from the funky release. Those two pitches in the zone, you're going to get a ton of whiff, and you're going to fly through the minor leagues. It might not work at the big league level to turn lineups over 2-3 times, and that's why he could be fast-tracked into a bullpen and then stretched out later. I think whoever drafts him will probably want to take their time, because I think the changeup really progressed, and that's kind of the X factor for him. But I think the unique release with Hagen Smith and that fastball getting the amount of whiff that it does, I think most people lean Burns. I actually think Smith is safer in some ways, and I do really like what he brings to the table with those two pitches. I think at worst, he's a high leverage arm, and maybe one of the best high leverage arms in the game. Some release similarities to a Josh Hader there with the fastball, and then at best that changeup develops, and you've got a guy that looks like a number 2 starter who gets a ton of swing and miss.
I do want to talk about some of these prep players, because it does seem like Burns is a possibility. It does seem like Caglianone's a possibility for the Sox at 5, but we've also heard a lot about Connor Griffin. Could you compare those two shortstops, Griffin and Rainier, to each other? Because I've heard comps of Rainier being close to Seager, but we kind of have a Seager-like shortstop in Coulson Montgomery already. So would you want to maybe diversify the prospects that you have by going with the righty Griffin, or is Griffin just like the better player in your mind? How do you view Rainier versus Griffin?
Yeah, so I think when you look at what Griffin can do, it's crazy upside, but a little bit more risk. And I think with both of these high school guys, it's risk. You got big kids, Griffin 6'5", Rainier who's 6'3", but long limbs, very projectable. They both come with some swing and miss concern, but they both come with some defensive value here. I think a lot of people think that Griffin could play a good shortstop or even a great center field with a lot of power projection. But when you look at where Rainier's come to the point where he looks like he can stick at shortstop, the swing looks really good in terms of the progress that he has made. It's power to all fields. We watched him put up exit velocities of 111 miles an hour in the high school invitational early this year. So you're already seeing the impact there. And yeah, you've got a Coulson Montgomery, but at this point, I think with the White Sox, you want to stockpile talent. And if he's coming cheap because there's belief from his agents, let's say, that he could slip later, and you get a discount here for a guy that I think in Rainier's probably the best prep player in this class, he's a two-way talent as well. He prefers to be a position player here, and so is Griffin. They're both two-way talents, but Rainier could probably be one of the better arms in this class. You have the fallback there on the mound. I think he's a little bit more advanced as a hitter, a little bit more polished all around. I love the approach. I think that's a guy that you can't be upset about getting the top prepster in this class, and a guy that comes from Harvard Westlake that has pumped out so much talent over the years, and a guy that really performed for Team USA and on the summer circuit and this spring against some really good competition in California. But if it all works for Griffin, you've got tools across the board and a lot of things to get excited about, but I have a little bit more concern about the hit tool there and just how it all comes together.
MLB Draft is such a crapshoot, and every year I'm just looking at him like, yeah, it's good to have this guy. And our guy Vinny always says, these guys are going to be good in 4 years from now. And then we're talking about these slots and how much money these guys get. So it's all confusing to me. What would you, Aram Leighton, do to improve this MLB Draft process if you had the power?
Oh, that is a great question. It's tough because I feel frustrated by the monetary approach. It almost feels like controlled free agency in a way. And I think that there's a lot of things that can work against players. I think we've seen a lot of examples where players get leveraged against really hard and have unfortunate situations. I think about players where the physical doesn't go right and they'll say, well, either, we just won't sign you or you take this half this signing bonus because of how valuable it is for them to be able to allocate that money elsewhere. So I hate presenting or complaining about something without presenting a very clear solution. But I do wish there was a little bit more guardrails in the negotiation process. Maybe you can't go too far under slot, so it doesn't become a situation where you're bargaining so hard against everybody, and players don't have to operate in a fear where, okay, if this team doesn't take me at number 2, I might slip all the way to 6 because teams 3, 4, and 5 are going to go pitcher or are going to go high school. And that's something that has worked against players in the past. So it just feels like there's a lot more leverage towards the play or towards the teams here, And I feel like that's a bit unfortunate because players are kind of just sitting and hoping that another team, will sign them. And usually you try to leverage teams against each other. But at the end of the day, the teams seem to have the advantage there. And I think if they could kind of condense maybe how far under slot you can go, maybe there's X amount that you need to spend with each pick. I think that would maybe make it a little bit more beneficial for the players and protect them a little bit more.
Well, and 2, I mean, the NHL and NFL have 7 rounds, and MLB is out here with 20. I think just 2, it's a lot for people to take in. But Aram, you condensed it fantastically. Great job with your write-ups. You can go check out Aram's most recent mock draft up at justbaseball.com, the 3.0, but he's got another one coming out soon as well. Aram, thank you so much for all the information. This was fantastic. And again, go check out his work at justbaseball.com.
Thanks so much for having me.
Cool. Thanks, Aram. Yeah, and you can follow him at Aram Leighton 8. That was fantastic stuff, and I feel like, we did a good job. The MLB draft is very scary, and Aram broke it down very easily for us.
Well, I just think too that it's worth the focus on all those top guys because the Sox have this pick, and it's an important opportunity for them to add another one of these building blocks like Coulson Montgomery, like Noah Schultz. It's just important.
Who was the higher pick? Was it Montgomery or Schultz? Montgomery, right?
Montgomery, I believe.
Yeah, but he was still even like 15. So, I mean, it still was, it's tough to figure all of this stuff out. But, hey, Aram's trying, and they do a great job over at justbaseball.com. All right, let's take a break. Vinny, why don't you let us know about our friends over at Leighton?
Chicago does pizza. Wisconsin does the beer. The Leighton Kugels that comes across the border is just fantastic. And you guys got to make sure that you try all the varieties you can. Obviously, it's summer right now, so summer shandy is en vogue, and rightfully so. It's delicious. The lemonade, the beer, the combination, it's tremendous, and it's perfect for any summertime activity you might have, whether you're going to the lake for a picnic, going down to the right to tailgate, whether you're paddling around in some sort of Wisconsin-based canoe. You're going to need a whole case of summer shandy to really keep you company. But, of course, there's all sorts of other stuff. The Lakeside Cherry that Herb's drinking right now. They've got the Honey Vice, which is made by real Wisconsin bees. And, of course, the Berry Vice, never going to give you up. It's just all terrific, and you should go ahead and sample all that you can because it's just great beer. So flavor life's simple moments with Leighton Kugels, the official craft beer of the Chicago White Sox. Go to Leighton.com/CHGO to find delivery options near you. That's LEINIE.com/CHGO, or pick up Leighton Kugels pretty much anywhere they sell beer. Leighton Kugels, flavor the moment, celebrate responsibly. The Jacob Leighton Kugel Brewing Company, Chippewa Falls.
Yes! And Indeed is driven by the search for better. When it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. According to Indeed data, 93% of employers agree that Indeed delivers the highest quality of matches compared to other job sites. And they leverage over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day to make their matching engine better and help it learn from your preferences. So the more that you use Indeed, the better that it gets. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of the show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/AllCity. Just go to Indeed.com/AllCity right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/AllCity. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. And again, follow all the great work that Peter, Jack, and Aram do over at Just Baseball. A lot of guys work there as well, like Elijah Evans. He contributes to that site as well, who we've had on this show before. So go check out their great work at justbaseball.com. Aram's going to have another mock draft coming out as well, and they do a great job with their podcast breaking down those mock drafts. So if you even got a second team, maybe an NL team that you follow, Aram will get you covered on all 30, MLB team. So we appreciate his time and effort on this podcast. We do have some Coulson Montgomery stuff to get to in just a second. Vinny was able to chat with him last week. Do want to get to the baseball toss super chat, though. Connor Griffin is the best option, in my opinion. 88 steals in 89 attempts.
That's good.
That is pretty good. It is high school, but the Louisiana high school product does seem intriguing. He is a righty, which I guess is the one thing that I brought up to Aram, and he answered well. It's confusing because, like, Rainier does seem to be alluring. He does have the two-way possibilities. He is a left-handed hitting, right-handed throwing player as well, just like Colson Montgomery. But I wonder if those players, like, is it too much to have, like these, I don't know, too similar of players?
No.
Too built?
The answer is 100% no. I mean, this is, we joke about it, the idea that the baseball draft is a crapshoot and you'd have no idea who you're taking kind of thing. But it's so different from those other sports in that you cannot draft based on need, especially at the big league level, but even throughout your entire organization. Mm-hmm. Obviously, when you stack it all up, right? You mentioned there's 20 rounds. There's going to be a lot of guys that join the White Sox organization next week. When you stack it up, maybe it will lean a little bit more position players because they are currently strong on the pitching side, or stronger on the pitching side, I should say. But why not get stronger on the pitching side? Why not give yourself a chance to be even better? That's why the focus is on the talent and not necessarily the need. It's not like at 5, if both those pitchers are available and there's all these position players, the White Sox are going to go, oh, well, we don't need pitching. I mean, yeah, they do, because everybody needs pitching, and all the way down through the years too, right? I mean, it's about hitting on somebody who's going to help you so far into the future, not tomorrow. You don't know what your major league roster is going to look like 5 years from now when that player might be ready to be an impact player for you. So if you're saying they can't have 2 Coulson Montgomerys, yeah, they can. They'll find another place for one of them to play.
And I should also make sure that I'm saying it right. Thanks, Baseball Toss, for correcting me. It's not. I think I'm saying it French.
Well, you're saying it like the beer and mountain.
Yeah.
Rainer. But there's another I in that word, so it's
Rainer.
Yeah.
And I was wondering this, Sean and Vinny, is there a player in the top 10 that you put out there that if the White Sox took that player at 5, you would be not disappointed, but
Nick Kurtz.
Okay, there it is. Okay. That would be a player that you'd be like, White Sox, you could have got a better player than that.
So he also came from Wake Forest like Gavin Sheets did. There's talk about Wake Forest's ballpark being very, very, very hitter-friendly, and I already have a lot of concerns over these college hitters because of BB Corbats, and we heard from Joe Doyle that there's a lot of juice bats going around college baseball. Basically, they designate juice bats by having a sticker on them, and it's very easy, as we know, to peel a sticker off. So it's easy to use juice bats in college baseball. So I have some
I don't
concerns.
know what sticker peeling you're doing. I find it I cannot take a sticker off a thing without all the residue being left behind.
They've really updated sticker technology.
It's a problem at the record store, let me tell you.
Well, these are metal bats, not paper from the 70s. But I do have concerns over Kurtz because, again, he seems like Sheets and Vaughn, very much first baseman type. Where Caglianone, I think there is talk that you can move him to right field because of his arm. Montgomery seems like he has a really good athletic base and can play the outfield. Condon seems like he could possibly play third or left field. Bazana's playing a middle infield spot. Weatherholt's a shortstop / center fielder / second baseman. So I think Kurtz has the lowest athletic floor, and we've seen what happens when you take a low athletic floor first baseman. Kurtz was a guy that I think was top 4, probably about if you asked back in May, and it seems like now he's kind of getting closer to that like 10th to 11th to the 10th to 15th range rather than the top 5. So Kurtz is the guy that I would avoid.
Condon looks like Chris Bryant to me,
which isn't a bad thing.
No,
I know people have been saying that as a bad thing, but like.
No. Chris Bryant is awesome.
Big,
I mean, not
tall,
anymore, but
yeah.
I mean, the man won Golden Spikes, Rookie of the Year, or Minor League Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, then MVP consecutively. If that is what turns Charlie Condon, Chicago White Sox, and then eventually he turns into Chris Bryant, maybe I'll take those 4 early years and then deal with whatever happens on the backside of that contract.
And I guess too, like I sit here 3 days out, and there's nobody that I'm like, you need to take this player. I think there are truly like 15 different guys that I'd be totally fine with them taking. I think Kurtz would be the only one I'd have like true issues with. But even with Montgomery, I think I could talk myself into them getting like a deal because he broke that bone, his ankle bone. And that's not like a serious injury where it's like a Tommy John repair or anything like that. Like your bones will heal up. You'll get surgery. It'll be fine. Montgomery seems like he has the highest athletic floor or the highest athletic ceiling, which makes me fairly intrigued on him. So, I mean, if they take a pitcher, makes sense because they really like that pitching talent and they don't think they can get that elsewhere. If they take, a bat like Caglianone, it's because they think of that power, they couldn't get it elsewhere. But in a bad draft, I don't really have too many guys, and I'm like, you have to take this guy because I don't know. I mean, if Bazzano's there at 5, I'll be over the moon. I'm not going to be upset.
I just wonder too, like draft philosophies are, like we were talking about, Drew Thorpe has a high floor with a low ceiling. Like, do they go into it like thinking, okay, we would want the home run hitting guy and the home run pick? Yes, he might have a low floor because he has a lot of swing and miss like Jac Caglianone. But if he hits, he's going to be a superstar, and that'll be a player that we would regret not drafting if he was on the board and we missed him. That's what I wonder if the White Sox go into, like thinking about, we're just going to take the highest floor, the highest ceiling guy that we can have. And yes, he might have a low floor, but we're not banking on his worst. We're banking on his best.
And I think both Rayner and Griffin are those guys. I mean, just because you're picking an 18-year-old and a 17-year-old, I think Griffin reclassified too. So it's kind of the Wolkow situation where he's a young 17-year-old, or he's an older 17-year-old.
He's played basketball. Colson's like 6'3".
Yeah. Griffin's like 6'3", 195 or something.
If we keep Crochet, about 6'3" himself.
Oh, I mean, we have centers. Noah Schultz and Crochet will dominate.
They can
the
go
paint.
back and forth between the Sox and the Bulls.
There you go.
Jerry's like, baby, let's go.
They're not playing in October.
When you own both teams, everybody's your employee, just moving back and forth.
That's what he did with Michael Jordan. Why not do it again?
When does the Bulls schedule start? It's like October 27th, right?
Yeah.
White Sox won't be in the world.
Exactly. They get a little break too. So yeah, I'm for probably the prep players mainly too, because the Groot deal included a competitive balance
Number
draft pick for the
68,
Mariners,
right?
yeah, for the Mariners. So they have 7 picks in the top 105 or the 5 picks in the top 107.
Hold on, they have 5 in the top 107.
Yeah, Merck said it.
Hold on, I wrote it today because I counted them up.
That Shirley thing. But I think they have 5 picks in the top 107, something that they're usually not doing too. So if they are trying to conserve their money to make sure that even with them maxing out at 5% and going over the typical 5% for most Major League Baseball teams, I think that would probably be the smartest thing to make sure that you're trying to get the best value at each pick.
5 in the top 107.
Yeah, which is typically not what they have. So I would be all for quantity over quality, I guess, because there's no real argument saying that Griffin can't be a Major League superstar. He's just younger and off the timeline that these guys currently are on. All right, let's get into some Coulson Montgomery, a player that is currently in the White Sox organization, a former first-round pick of the organization. Vinny got to chat with him along with the rest of the assembled Chicago media, and they got to chat about his future star appearance that's coming up and what work he's been doing down in AAA.
Having consistent at bats and playing consistently every single day. Last year, I didn't really get to do that much. Didn't play as many games. I mean, I've already played way more than I did last year at this time. So I'm happy to be healthy, one. So I would just say I've been consistently working every day. And I mean, there's a lot of ups and downs in this game. There's a lot of peaks and valleys is what I always talk about. But I mean, I got a good group around me here to kind of help me just stay consistent and just stay on the right track of being the best player that I can be. But I would just say the biggest thing is just defensively too. Just keep proving that I'm a shortstop, playing with urgency and playing with high energy.
You bring it up there. I mean, obviously folks can go to the stat page and see how things are going offensively in terms of results, but defensively, how would you kind of assess where you are and what sort of things have you been working on in that aspect?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, defensively, like I said, I was just kind of trying to stay urgent. That's the biggest thing is what we kind of talk about is the urgency. Guys in the big leagues, they hit the ball a lot harder at you, and then they also get down the line a lot faster. So if I can just keep doing what I'm doing every single day, just playing with urgency and playing with high energy and playing the best that I can be, I mean, everything's going to work out for itself.
Yeah, Coulson, you mentioned the defensive side of it. Almost sounded like you said it with a bit of a chip on your shoulder because the question is always asked. I know you believe you are, and the White Sox people at the top of the organization say it's yours to prove. But kind of take us through your mindset there in terms of being a shortstop and what your feelings are in terms of do you belong and is that your spot to stay?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I mean, of course, I'm gonna think that I belong there. I mean, just playing at a high level professionally, you gotta think that you're the best at that position, and that's what I think that I am, and I feel like I've proven that over my 3 years of playing in professional baseball. So, kind of like you said, though, yeah, playing with a chip on my shoulder because a lot of people think that I'm too big to be a shortstop, and I mean, this is the common question and common conversation all the time of if I should be a shortstop. But the only thing that I can do is just keep proving everybody wrong that thinks I shouldn't be a shortstop and keep proving the White Sox right of saying that they want to keep me at the shortstop.
How did you find out that you made the roster, and what are you most looking forward to at the event?
Yeah, so we were in Norfolk, and we were just sitting there chilling, and I was in the weight room working out, and then Jerish, my manager, just called me in, and they had Janice on the phone, and Janice just said, really happy with what you've been doing. Just keep staying consistent, keep doing what you're doing. We know everything's going to work out, and just want to let you know that you've been selected for the Futures game. And then I said, let's go. And I was really excited, and I'm still excited. I can't wait to play there. I'm just looking forward to going out there and just having fun, pretty much. I mean, that's why I always say is having fun. But the biggest thing is kind of taking that time to relax too, and know it's an all-star game, and also play the best you can. You know, there's nothing wrong with winning all-star game MVP and things like that, but just going out there and seeing all those guys, seeing those really good players also with you, and just being able to connect with them too. And I probably played with some of them in the fall league, and I've also probably seen some of them when I got drafted, or if I played with them or against them in the regular season. So just going out there and hanging out with all those guys and just celebrating that fact of being selected for Futures games is going to be really cool.
What are you most, I say, what's the biggest thing that you've learned so far in Charlotte from Jerish and the staff about being an everyday player at the next level? I know you're not there yet, but I mean, you're obviously grooming yourself to be there. So is there one thing that's really stood out from those guys?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is acting professional on and off the field, you know, because there's a lot of things that are going to happen with how you play. People might not like how you're playing, things like that, but you just got to stay consistent and keep a level head. You can't really get too involved with the ups, can't get too involved with the downs. It's a steady process is what I always keep learning from these guys and from Jerish and from these veteran players that have been in the big leagues is you just got to stick with the process, and you can't really chase results because once you start chasing results, they just keep getting farther away from you. So I've just been sticking to that and playing consistently. And a lot of people, when they're not playing good, they might not want to play, but what do you think you got to do to get out of it? You know, you got to keep playing. You know, you got to keep playing this game, and that's what I do. I come out here and just think it's a new day and a new opportunity. I mean, I'm blessed to have the opportunity to play this game every single day.
Wouldn't be an interview with you if we didn't ask what you thought about your kind of major league timetable. I mean, have you thought much about that? I know you're saying be where your feet are and just, you know, don't chase results and that kind of thing. But I mean, how close do you feel?
Mm-hmm. I mean, every single day, I feel like I'm getting closer and closer, you know, just from growing as a player. And also you have to keep in the mindset of every single day you're getting closer to whenever that is. Also, it's a lot of it and pretty much all of it is out of my control. So pretty much just control what I can control, honestly. But I mean, you think about it all the time here and there, and you see all this stuff that's going on with moves and trades, and especially with everything that's coming up, that you just never know what's going to happen. So it can kind of get distracting of being where your feet are and being how you're supposed to play. So, I mean, my best answer is just every day I feel like I'm getting closer and closer to being the best player that I can be and being a really good big league shortstop.
You saw Brooks and Edgar last night. They joined you in Charlotte, and you had a lot of experience with guys during spring training and from last year. I think it's another thing we've asked you quite a bit, but do you like the core that's being developed here of the young talent for the White Sox?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I could see it in spring training when I went down to the minor league side and just able to see all these guys work and how they're playing. I mean, all these guys are grinders, and a lot of people feel like they haven't heard these guys like Brooks and Q. I mean, Q's been a top 100 guy all the time, but I mean, they're really making a name for themselves this year. And I would like to say Brooks Baldwin is probably is people don't look at him enough. You know, I would say he's one of our best players in our organization, just how he goes about his business and being professional with the things that he does. And he plays the game the right way. I've only played with him one game and I could kind of get the gist of all that stuff. And Q also really young guy. He's awesome. He's a really good person too, more than a baseball player. So, I mean, you can see what these guys do on the field, and especially at their first game in AAA. None of the fame, none of the all that talk got to them at all. They just went out and played the game that they love to play.
But just on that note, you played alongside Brian Ramos a lot. Just what about him as a player have you seen grow over this time?
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, you could tell when he came down from being in the big leagues, he just had this whole new wave. He's always had confidence about himself, but he just had this whole new wave of confidence in himself that a lot of us haven't seen before. And I mean, he's just a really good player too. You can tell with how he plays and some of the plays that he would make at third base at the big league level. It was just a lot of it looked effortless and nonchalant. So I would just say the core that we got going on right now in AAA and in AA is something to be very excited for. With the Sox fans and everybody, I feel like it's something a lot of people should be looking forward to.
When I spoke to you earlier in the year, you talked about AAA kind of, automated strike zone and how much pitchers will kind of keep trying to execute their breaking balls, even if they miss a couple. What is kind of, now you've been there for half a season or more, what's kind of continued to reveal itself about that level and what's required for success there?
Mm-hmm. I would say the biggest thing is we kind of figured out that now how people are going to pitch to you. After you play a lot and you play consecutive amount of games and get a lot of consecutive ABs, you can kind of get a feel of how pitchers are going to pitch to you and how you can attack that plan and attack that process. So I would say the biggest thing is just sticking with the process and not chase results with kind of like what I was saying. And so I've been feeling pretty good lately, so just going to keep on going.
Is that a longer process in an international league? It's like 20 teams as opposed to Southern League. Maybe you're playing the same guys over and over again to kind of learn the league and the pitching that you're facing.
Yeah, definitely from the beginning of the year. It takes a little bit just because you don't see them as much. But then, I mean, once we play some of these teams pretty consistently now on a basis, so you can kind of get a good feel of it.
Coulson, you made it clear where your focus is in terms of, when you might actually be coming up to the big leagues, but where's your hope? Where's your excitement level? I mean, you do have kind of you're giving off kind of a prove it vibe. I mean, what are your aspirations are obviously to be a big leaguer. How excited are you for that to be closer, if not, when it is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to put a timetable on it or anything because, like I said, you never know, and you can't really control what they have for me. I mean, and then if anything, their best interest is me of becoming and developing as a player, so if I'm not ready, they're not going to pull me up to make me fail or anything like that, so they're going to do their best and everything that they can to develop me the way they want to. Like I said, I don't really have a timetable and things like that. Just day by day, pretty much. I mean, kind of what everybody said at the beginning of the year is not if, but when, so it's kind of the same thing, I feel like, and just taking it day by day.
Just saying not if, not when, has that been something you've been able to, carry with you when, having a slower start offensively at points, but knowing that this is kind of, something you're going to have to work through, but it's not, an if question, but more of a when question.
Yeah. I mean, 100%. I mean, being professional, being a pro in general, I mean, you're gonna think yourself as the highest level and think of yourself as the best. And if you aren't doing that, you're just gonna be selling yourself short. So the not if but when kind of thing in my head, yeah, I kind of think that and everything, but also, I mean, just one day closer. I mean, you never know when you're gonna get that call. I could get that call tomorrow. And you're like, oh, well, I was a slow start, but, they might have a something going on, so you just never know when it's going to happen. All I can do is just try to be the best player and best person that I can be for this organization.
We're excited for him to be that. Hopefully he will be with the White Sox team soon. Maybe it's after the trade deadline. Maybe it's in 2025, but we'll have to wait and see. I don't know if there's anything specifically that you took away from Coulson speaking there, but it doesn't seem like a guy that's too worried about maybe the struggles that could be going on at Charlotte for him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think when you're a pro player, and he shouted this out a couple of times, you think you're the best. And I mean, obviously you deal with reality, but this is a guy who trusts in his ability, and seems to be getting very, very comfortable. I mean, just the idea of what it has been like talking to him in the past versus what it's like talking to him now. You can see an evolution in his personality, in his maybe not confidence level, because I'm sure it was always high, but the projection of that confidence, right? And so I think the thing that jumps out to me every time we hear Coulson talk really is kind of the certainty that he has that he's going to play shortstop at the major league level, and I think the White Sox are ready to give him that opportunity. There's a lot of folks out there, I know, Sean, you being one of them, that just has the question, right, of can he do that? Is he going to be able to play well enough defensively to stick there? He's working on it, and he certainly believes that he can. The White Sox, like I said, are going to give him the chance, but that's kind of the newsier element right there, is that he maybe has a little bit of a prove-it mindset or a chip on his shoulder against folks who keep asking those questions.
And I don't necessarily look at the struggles that he's heading down in AAA as something to worry about myself, because he's, 4 years younger than the average player down there. He'll be fine eventually. If it doesn't happen after the trade deadline, after you're talking about, Sean, I know at 2025, the White Sox will have him on the team, and he looks like the part, too. As you were saying, Vinny, it seems like as a kid that just drafted out of high school and has been in the professional leagues for the last 3 years, he seems mature, way beyond his years, and he understands the grind of baseball. He understands that sometimes things are not going to go well, but there's another day, and that mindset and that mentality is going to carry him well into his major league career, knowing that baseball is a game of failure, and you're going to fail from time to time for long stretches of time. Don't give up. Keep on battling through it. It looks like that's what he's doing right now in Charlotte.
Yeah, and I know that there's some questions, even with myself, about how good he can be. There were questions already with his defensive position and where he'll play. He feels like he can play shortstop. I think the White Sox feel like they'll give him a shot to play shortstop at the major league level, so that really won't be a question that's answered until he's playing on a major league level. The one thing that's concerning me a little bit, and again, he is a 4.5-year age difference between him and AAA, so there is even a much wider gap there, is the hit tool as good as it was thought to be? Fangraphs had it as a 35 hit tool out of 45 future grade. I wonder if it's a little bit smaller because he's been hot in the past month, but his batting average is only 215. Yeah. We've seen batting average all across baseball be down, though, so I'm unsure. The one thing that I am taking away, though, he's got 6 hits that are 110 miles per hour or higher. And if you compare that to the White Sox leaderboard, Eloy Jimenez has 8 hits, batted ball exit velocities of 110 or higher. 8 for Jimenez, 5 for Robert, 4 for Vaughn, 2 for Pham, 1 for Sosa, Lee, and Sheets. So this is a guy that is producing, major league level exit velocities at this level. So that's at least, hopeful, or inspires a little bit of hope in the player.
And I would just say this too: if he's not ready, he's not ready, right? And that's okay. The White Sox are not in a position where they need to rush these guys up here to contribute to a team that's chasing something. Right now, the White Sox are the worst team in baseball. They might end up the worst team in the history of baseball. Why does Coulson need to be on this team this year if he's not ready? Well, the answer is he doesn't. And so while there are benefits to getting a guy experience and stuff like that, and if he is ready, bring him up. But if he is not ready and they think that he has more to accomplish in AAA, there is nothing wrong with leaving him in AAA for the rest of the year, because they do not need him at the major league level in 2024.
No, that's a good point. He won't turn 23 until February 27th. And the last time they took a number 1 or first round shortstop was Tim Anderson back in 2013. He made his debut when he was 23 at 2016. Is there any overlap there? There isn't a rush, and I don't know if there was a rush necessarily with Tim. Is there anything that we could take from Tim's journey through the minor leagues for Coulson?
Different players, and I think that if the White Sox are doing things right, and the way Josh Barfield talked about him when he came over here from Arizona, they're completely focused on the individual case of Coulson Montgomery and not trying to compare it to other players. I'd say this, though. The White Sox, as much as they did not succeed at doing so, were competing for something in the years leading up to 2016, and it wasn't until the very end of that season in which they decided to make it where they are now.
Maybe let me rephrase this. Is it a failure if Coulson Montgomery doesn't make it to the major leagues until June of 2025?
Not at all. Not at all. He's still relatively young. Like you said, he'll be 23 at that time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, young as hell. And by that time, I would assume if he's getting called up by that time, he's done some work down in Charlotte to improve his stock, to improve his game. And the comparisons to Tim kind of are apt, but because they were like, his bat's ready, his glove sucks. That's what they said about Tim. And this is pretty much the same. Well, the bat's not ready right now for Colson Montgomery, but I would still put him on the major league roster if he was calling that. I mean, if his stats continue this way up until August, yeah, bring him up.
Yeah, we'll see. They're different players, too. Tim didn't have this much time in Charlotte. He only played 55 games. Colson's already at 77. Tim had more time in Birmingham. Coulson, played like 50 games in Birmingham. So he's had a very just interesting rise through the minor leagues as well. So we'll see where Coulson Montgomery ends up developing. That's going to do it for the CHGO White Sox podcast. Hopefully we've gotten you covered up on Coulson Montgomery and the latest around him, and hopefully Aram Leighton got you caught up on the Major League Draft that's coming up on the 14th. We will be having a show on the 14th. We'll wrap up the first half. We'll talk about the Pirates series this weekend, and if there is any draft news that we can relay, we'll obviously let you know. That's Vinnie Duber. You can follow him at Vinnie Duber. He'll be at the park this weekend. You can follow him at Vinnie Duber for updates and for any articles that he'll publish over the weekend. That's Herb Lawrence. You can follow him at Eckerwall23. He's our CHGO White Sox community leader. I'm Sean Anderson. You can follow me at Sean_W_Anderson. Follow the show at CHGO_White Sox. Thank you to Mr. Hockey himself, Steven, for producing the show. And hit that thumbs up button on your way out. We'll talk to you on Sunday. Goodbye.
We all silly like the mayor.